When the agent slapped handcuffs on him, I was holding Juno's leash, standing silently by the coffee machine. He looked at me, the panic in his eyes sharp and sudden, and I swear, that's when it hit him. This was my doing. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just tightened my grip on the leash as Juno sniffed at the floor like none of this mattered. But to me, it was everything. 2 months earlier, I didn't know the full scope of what I was walking into. I just knew I needed a job. I was 27, recently divorced, emotionally sunburned from a 3-year marriage that faded more than it failed. Daniel and I split like adults. Civil, quiet. He kept his minimalist studio apartment downtown. I got the dog and the better espresso machine. We shared custody of Juno like she was a kid, not a wiry little Jack Russell with anxiety and a Napoleon complex. Somehow she made the silence after my divorce feel less empty. The insurance company I landed at, Breyer and Levin Partners, was small, tidy, almost old school. Cozy office, low-stakes vibe. People brought homemade banana bread to work, and the break room always smelled like those cinnamon-scented pine cones people put in baskets at Christmas. It felt harmless. My boss, Greg Levin, was a middle-aged man with golf tan lines and a habit of clapping you on the back just a little too hard. "We're a family here," he told me on my first day, handing me a mug that set Trust Build's policies. At first, I believed him. The work was manageable. Mostly seniors, Medicare supplement plans, life insurance upgrades, that kind of thing. I figured it was good karma work. Helping people prepare for their future, sleep a little easier. Until I met Mrs. Delaney. She was 83. Still drove herself to the office in a spotless '95 Buick. She reminded me of my Nana, firm voice, purse full of hard candies, the kind of woman who paid in exact change and folded her receipts. She came in confused, thinking she'd be reviewing her existing plan. But Greg sent me in with a sales packet labeled, Tier 5 Advantage Platinum Coverage. It had legal language thick enough to choke a lawyer and premiums that would make your eyes water. When I gently suggested this wasn't a good fit for her needs, that she was already covered, he pulled me aside. "Sell the policy, Samantha," he said. "She's old. She won't remember half of this tomorrow." Something cold coiled in my stomach. It was the first red flag I couldn't ignore. Later that night, walking Juno through our usual park loop, I told Daniel everything. "It's not just one client," I said. "They target anyone over 70. Confuse them, scare them with legal lingo, get them to sign these overpriced policies." Daniel, who'd always been the quiet problem solver, just nodded. "So let's get proof." And that was the moment this stopped being just a job. I didn't sleep much that night. You know that feeling when your body's still but your brain is sprinting laps? That was me. Lying in bed, lights off, Juno curled behind my knees and my mind just replaying Greg's words on loop. "She's old. She won't remember." By morning, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to let this sit. But I also wasn't stupid. If they were pulling this scam, I needed to move carefully. Quietly. That's where Daniel came in. "Do they store client data digitally?" he asked the next day, over coffee and scrambled eggs at my apartment. He had Juno on his lap, sneaking her bites of toast. We were still close like that, no drama, just an odd, peaceful friendship. Honestly, it felt more solid than our marriage ever did. "Yeah," I said. "Everything goes into this clunky internal CRM. It's old but searchable." He looked up, that little spark in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. "You get me a login." "I'll take a look." So I did. Under the pretense of remote access, totally normal in our office, I logged Daniel into the system from his laptop. He set up a mirrored data capture. Every client interaction I had, every record I opened, quietly saved in a secure folder on his end. It felt dangerous, but also kind of righteous. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing the pattern more clearly. Clients over 70 were being flagged with terms like PSI, T5, Product Sales Initiative, Tier 5, which I thought were harmless codes. Turns out PSI, T5 was an internal script. Literally, Daniel found entire email chains from management with recommended phrasing to pressure seniors into buying more expensive policies they didn't need. Fear-based language. Phrases like, "protect your family from burden," and "this window won't be open long." It made my skin crawl. One afternoon, Greg held a sales meeting. He stood in front of a whiteboard scribbled with numbers and grinned like a kid who just hit the jackpot. "Tier 5 sales are up 32% this quarter," he said, clapping. "Great job to everyone pushing the golden leads. These are high-value clients, and remember, urgency closes deals." Golden leads. That's what they were calling them. Elderly clients. People like Mrs. Delaney. I kept my face neutral. Nodded with everyone else. Inside, I was screaming. That night, I came home late and found Daniel waiting on the steps, Juno bouncing at the end of the leash. I think we've got enough, he said. But we need audio. Audio? I repeated. He nodded. You record one conversation, just one, where they push you to sell an unneeded policy, and it ties the whole thing together. Documents can be spun. A voice? Not so much. I swallowed hard. Audio meant risk. It meant getting close to the flame. But I'd already lit the match. The tiny mic fit under my blouse, just below the second button. Daniel had picked it up from a tech store downtown, the kind of place that sells surveillance gear to suspicious spouses and amateur ghost hunters. It paired with a discreet app on my phone. One tap to record. Another to upload to his encrypted drive. Make sure the phone stays in range, he warned me the morning I first wore it. Purse or pocket. Don't let it leave the room. I nodded. My palms were sweating so badly I nearly dropped the leash. You sure about this? He asked, handing Juno off. No, I said honestly. But I'm still doing it. The office felt sharper that day. Not in appearance, same beige walls, same pot of stale breakroom coffee, but in mood. Like everyone was just a little too aware of each other. Greg called me into his office before lunch. He wore that same smug grin, leaning back in his leather chair like he was holding court. Got a client for you. Widow. 76. Just lost her husband. No kids. Prime Tier 5 material. His tone made my stomach turn. She already has a policy with us, I said, flipping through the file. Exactly, he nodded. That's your in. Tell her it's outdated. Say we're updating coverage for 2025. Make her feel like she's getting something new, better, more protective. I looked at him. Really looked. And I realized he didn't see her as a person at all. Just a number. A quota. A golden lead. What if she can't afford it? Greg's eyes narrowed slightly. That's not your concern. Your concern is closing the deal. Click. That was the sound in my head when I hit the record button inside my purse. The meeting lasted 10 minutes. He never outright said, scam, he was smarter than that. But the pressure, the manipulation tactics, the focus on vulnerability, it was all there. Enough for someone who knew what to listen for. Afterward, I practically ran to the restroom. Locked the stall. Took a moment to just breathe. My hands were shaking. Back at home, I handed Daniel the phone like it was a bomb. It's all there, I whispered. He didn't say anything at first. Just nodded and went to work. That week, we reviewed everything. Audio, emails, client patterns. We even found a spreadsheet labeled conversion probabilities with age brackets color-coded by likelihood to purchase under pressure. Red for 80 plus. High yield. I wanted to throw something, but I couldn't. Not yet. Then one morning, everything almost fell apart. I arrived at the office to find Karen, the office admin, sharp eyes, always 3 steps ahead, standing by my desk. Greg wants to see you, she said. Why? She leaned in. Someone's been poking around the policy logs. IT flagged some weird access points. My throat went dry. Probably nothing, she added, walking off. But her eyes lingered too long. Like she knew something. I texted Daniel from the bathroom, we may have a problem. They're onto the data pulls. No reply. 10 minutes later, backups are safe. Just lay low. I've got this. But my stomach stayed knotted. Because in that moment, a seed of doubt took root. What if he didn't have this? What if I trusted the wrong person? I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling while Juno curled into a tight little ball next to me. She always knew when something was off. That night, she didn't even pretend to settle. She just watched me with those dark, alert eyes like she was waiting for me to say what we were both thinking. What if Daniel sold me out? The thought had slithered in after Karen's warning and refused to leave. I hated myself for even entertaining it. Daniel, the guy who still walked my dog twice a week, who bought me soup when I was sick, who'd held my hand after the divorce papers were signed, he wouldn't do that. Would he? The next day at work, everything felt off kilter. People were whispering. Greg avoided eye contact. Karen gave me this tight, professional smile like she knew something I didn't. Then, just before lunch, IT sent out a company-wide email. Reminder, all access to client data systems is logged in, periodically reviewed. Unauthorized access will be investigated. Subtle. Real subtle. I texted Daniel again. You sure the logs can't be traced to you? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then nothing. That silence was worse than a lie. I tried to focus on work. Made 2 calls, filed a few policy updates. But my hands kept drifting to the mouse, to the CRM system, to the data trail we'd already followed. I knew better than to open anything risky now, but I still needed reassurance. I needed something. I checked the backup folder we use for evidence. The folder we'd been building together. I pulled it up on my phone, heart pounding. Empty. Not one file. No recordings. No emails. No client logs. Just a blank folder. I couldn't breathe. I called Daniel straight to voicemail. I tried again. Then texted, "Why did you wipe everything? What the hell is going on?" Still nothing. By the time I got home, I was shaking. Juno barked once, startled, when I slammed the door. I paced, cried a little, then sat down on the floor with my head in my hands. What had I done? The next morning, I was planning to go in early, pack my things, and disappear before Greg could find a reason to fire me. But when I opened my apartment door, there was a flash drive sitting on the welcome mat. Tiny. Silver. No note. Just there. I picked it up like it might bite me. Inside, plugged into my laptop, was everything. Every file. Every email. Every audio recording. And something new, a video. It was Daniel sitting at his desk. "If you're watching this," he said, "you probably think I screwed you." I didn't. He explained everything. How he'd pulled the files from the folder after the IT email. How he'd scrambled his IP to reroute any internal access logs. How he'd made a clean copy for the authorities and locked it in an offline vault. He'd only gone dark to protect me, he said. "I didn't want them coming after you for something you didn't even touch," he said. "You didn't ask to do this. You just couldn't look away." The screen went dark. I sat there, blinking back tears. Then I picked up Juno, kissed her head, and whispered, "Okay. Let's finish this." 2 days later, she walked in wearing a lavender coat that didn't quite fit anymore and eyes that carried a lifetime of careful worry. Her name was Irene Kellerman. 83. Widowed. She held her purse like it was armor. "I got a letter saying I need to come in," she said gently. "Said my policy was about to lapse if I didn't upgrade." I hadn't sent that letter. Nobody from my department had. But Greg? Oh, I had no doubt. I offered her tea, she declined. Sat across from me in the little meeting room that smelled like cinnamon and stale printer paper, her gloved hands folded neatly in her lap. "I lost my husband 2 years ago," she told me without being asked. "We were careful. Saved our whole lives. But bills," she trailed off. "I just want to make sure my niece isn't burdened." I opened her file on the CRM. She'd already purchased a full coverage life policy 5 years ago, one that was still active. Paid in full for the next 3 years. But right there in the notes, target tier upgrade. Push urgency. No known beneficiaries equals low resistance. My hands curled into fists. "Mrs. Kellerman," I said gently, "you don't need an upgrade. Your current policy is more than enough." She looked relieved. "Oh, thank goodness. I thought maybe, well, I sold my car last month to make room in my budget. I wasn't sure I could afford another increase." She'd sold her car to pay for a policy she didn't even need. That was it. My breaking point. After she left, thanking me 3 separate times, still gripping her purse like it might run off without her, I locked my office door and texted Daniel, "We go now." Full report. All of it. The next 48 hours were a blur. We put everything together: audio recordings, client logs, internal emails with sales scripts that would make your stomach turn. One message from Greg read, "If they hesitate, tell them it's a special senior coverage window." No such thing, but it works. Another, "Make them feel like they're protecting their legacy." That language converts. Daniel cross-referenced everything with the CRM's IP logs, mapping who accessed what when. Turns out, 3 managers knew. 2 even helped write the scripts. Greg, of course, was at the center of it all. We submitted our full dossier to the California Department of Insurance, the FTC, and most importantly, the District Attorney's Office for Elder Financial Abuse. For the record, under California Welfare and Institutions Code Section 15610.30, what they were doing wasn't just sleazy. It was criminal. Wire fraud, deceptive business practices, and elder abuse. Federal and state charges. No more hiding behind jargon. Still, we knew this could blow back. Greg had power. He had lawyers. And until someone made it official, we were just ex-employees with a theory. But then came the call. A week later. From a quiet, calm voice who introduced herself as Agent Lyons, Financial Crimes Division. "We've reviewed the evidence," she said. And we're moving forward. Agent Lyon's voice was like velvet over glass. Calm, precise, but with an edge that said, "I'm not here to play." "We'll be conducting preliminary interviews," she said. Quietly. "If anyone from the company contacts you, say nothing. We'll handle it from here." That was the day I stopped feeling scared and started feeling focused. My job wasn't over yet. Not until the last paper was filed, not until someone in a badge showed up in that office with something louder than a spreadsheet. Still, I had to play the game. Smile in meetings. Nod at Greg's terrible jokes. Sit through another team lunch where he toasted to record quarters while Karen passed around cookies like we weren't in the middle of a war. I kept Juno's leash by the door at home, ready for a quick exit. Daniel, meanwhile, tightened every digital screw he could think of. He backed up the evidence 3 times: cloud, hard drive, encrypted USB that I carried in my purse like a loaded pistol. "Just in case someone tries to get cute," he said. I didn't ask how he knew the right people to talk to about secure hosting. We were divorced. I figured some mysteries were healthier left unsolved. Then, midweek, something changed. Greg started acting twitchy. His swagger took a hit. His morning pep talks turned shorter. His calendar started filling with off-site meetings. Karen got quiet. Too quiet. And one afternoon, I overheard him arguing with someone in the parking lot, voice low but angry, words clipped like they knew they couldn't be loud. That night, Daniel called. "Check your email." I opened it. Inside was a forwarded message between Breyer and Levin execs. The subject line, "Employee concern regarding sales compliance, internal risk." My name was mentioned. They knew. Not everything, but enough to suspect. I stared at the screen for a long time, heart thudding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Daniel was silent on the other end of the line, waiting for me to say something. Finally, I did. "I think we're out of time." The next day, I told Agent Lyons. Her voice didn't waver. "Then we move sooner. We're coordinating with the FTC and the DA. You'll be notified when it's happening, but stay clear." I nodded. "You'll let me know?" She paused. "You'll know." That night, I took Juno for a walk in the rain. She darted between puddles, pulling at the leash like she was chasing ghosts. I followed, soaked and tired and weirdly calm. We were almost there. Almost. Then just as I was about to unlock my apartment door, I saw it. A car idling across the street. Headlights off. Someone in the driver's seat, not moving. I didn't wait. I got inside, locked the deadbolt, and pulled the curtains. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. I didn't answer. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about paper trails and emails. Someone knew I was the leak. And they weren't happy. The car was gone by morning. But the feeling stayed like a thread pulled too tight under my skin. I got to the office early, hoping for normalcy. But even the fluorescent lights felt hostile that day. Karen didn't say good morning. She just handed me a stack of call sheets like they might bite. At 10:14 a.m., Greg appeared in my doorway. No knock. No smile. "Let's talk." He didn't wait for a reply. Just turned and started walking. I followed, a heart pounding, hands cold. My mouth dry as paper. He led me not to his office, but to the little break room by the copier. The one with the terrible chairs and chipped mugs. No cameras. I knew because I checked weeks ago. He turned and leaned against the counter. "You've been busy, haven't you?" I didn't say anything. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You think I don't know a mole when I smell one?" "Greg, I gave you this job," he snapped, stepping closer. "Took a chance when no one else would." I felt the air shift. The room got smaller. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he said. "You think the state's gonna come riding in like a movie and save your little moral crusade?" He was sweating. Just a bit. Right at the hairline. "If you walk away now," he said, his voice lower, "we forget this happened. You keep your job. Maybe even a bump in salary. Clean slate." I looked him dead in the eye. "Mrs. Kellerman sold her car, Greg, to buy a policy she didn't need. Because of you." He didn't flinch. Just sneered. "That's her choice. You don't like the system? Get out of it. But don't you dare screw with mine." He stepped closer, too close, but I held my ground. "I already did," I said quietly. He paused. His face twitched. And in that moment, I knew he didn't know what we had. Not the recordings. Not the logs. Not the full extent. Just suspicion. He was guessing. "You're making a mistake," he growled. "No," I replied, stepping back. "You did." I walked out. Slow. Steady. Back to my desk like it was any other Thursday. Inside, I was shaking. At lunch, I went outside to breathe. Called Daniel. He knows, I said. Yeah, Daniel said. And so does everyone else. What? I just got word. FTC sent cease and desist letters. The DA has frozen the company's internal assets pending review. It's happening. My chest tightened. Wait, I said. They're not going to warn him, are they? Daniel chuckled, a soft, dark sound. No, he said. They're not going to warn anyone. The next morning was strangely normal. Karen brought in bagels. Greg handed out fake smiles like candy. But at 9:32 a.m., while I stood by the coffee machine, Juno's leash looped around my wrist because I'd just come from a vet visit and hadn't wanted to be late. They walked in. 4 agents. Suits. Badges. Calm chaos. One of them read Greg his rights. Another walked straight to the server room. Karen stood frozen, holding a blueberry muffin like it might shield her. And me? I just stood there. Quiet. Still. And when Greg looked at me, truly looked at me, he knew. This was my doing. They didn't cuff him right away. Agent Lyons, cool, composed, with that same razor-edge voice, started by showing him the warrant. Then came the questions. Calm. Clinical. Everything Greg hated. He tried to laugh it off at first. This is a mistake, he said, still trying to flash that greasy charm. We're a family business. Someone must have fed you bad info. But when Lyons laid out the evidence, the wire transfers, the scripts, the manipulated policy changes, I saw something flicker in his face. Not guilt. Panic. They cuffed him 10 minutes later. Right there by the copier, next to the basket of bagels. He looked at me as they walked him out. No words. Just that stunned, hollow expression of a man who realized the game was over, and he didn't even know how he lost. The office exploded after that. Phones ringing, agents moving like clockwork. Employees whispering, crying, packing. HR shut down our email accounts by 11 a.m. A few people left in tears. Karen? She locked herself in her car and didn't come back after lunch. By 2 p.m., the company website was replaced with the federal holding page. Breyer and Levin was done. I stayed quiet through it all. Agent Lyons debriefed me in a side room. It was surprisingly informal. More like a post-op than an interrogation. You did the right thing, she said. Most people look away. I nodded, exhausted. There's a chance you'll be called to testify, she added. Federal and state charges. It could get noisy. That's okay, I said. Let it be loud. That night, Daniel and I sat on my fire escape. He brought takeout, Thai noodles and egg rolls, and Juno curled between us like a little heating pad with paws. You know, he said, passing me a spring roll, we could have just written an anonymous letter. Avoided the whole war. I laughed, actually laughed. Yeah, but where's the satisfaction in that? He grinned. True. The next morning, the headlines rolled out. Local insurance firm under federal investigation for senior fraud scheme. CEO arrested, multiple employees cooperating with authorities. They pixelated Greg's face on TV. I don't know why. It wasn't like anyone was protecting him anymore. Calls started pouring in. Reporters. Regulators. A lawyer offering whistleblower representation. Turns out, under Dodd-Frank Act Section 922, I was entitled to protection and maybe even a reward. Not that I cared about the money. What I wanted was simpler. Justice. One voicemail hit me harder than I expected. It was from Irene Kellerman's niece. She'd found my number through the article. Her voice cracked as she thanked me, said her aunt was embarrassed but relieved. She kept blaming herself, the niece said. You helped her sleep again. That was it. That was the moment I let myself cry. Not out of fear. Not out of relief. But because it had all been worth it. The building sat shuttered for weeks after the raid. Then one bright Tuesday morning, a for-lease sign appeared in the front window. Just like that, Breyer and Levin Partners became a ghost. No press conference. No apology. Just silence and a bad aftertaste. Meanwhile, my inbox overflowed. Job offers. Interview requests. Even a podcast producer who wanted to capture the emotional arc of a whistleblower's journey. I deleted that one with a smirk. But then came an email I didn't expect, from Stanley Booth, one of the senior partners from a mid-sized insurance firm across town. We'd never worked together directly, but he'd apparently admired my integrity from afar. He asked to meet for coffee. So we did. He was polite. Charming even. The kind of man who wore expensive cufflinks but tried to seem casual. We'd love to bring you on, he said, sliding a crisp folder across the table. Head of Client Ethics and Compliance. It's a new role. Full freedom to build the department your way. I opened the folder. The salary was generous. The benefits? Ridiculous. I closed it slowly. It's a good offer, I admitted. He leaned in. Frankly, Samantha, after what you did exposing all of that, people in this industry are paying attention. You've got something rare. Conscience. Backbone. I smiled, not flattered, just tired. I appreciate that, I said. But I already gave myself to one system that lost its way. I'm not looking to climb back inside another one just because it wears a nicer suit. He blinked, surprised. You're turning it down? I am, I said gently. He paused. Nodded once. Then stood, extended his hand. Well, I still admire the hell out of you. Good luck, wherever you land. I shook his hand. Thanks. I think I already have. That night, I sat on the floor with Daniel and Juno and a stack of brochures from nonprofits and legal aid groups. I'd been researching them for days. One stood out, Silver Shield, a nonprofit dedicated to helping elderly victims of financial fraud. Small team. Shoestring budget. But real work. Hard work. They need someone to train volunteers and build an advocacy program, I told Daniel. It's not glamorous. Definitely not rich. He looked at me over the rim of his beer. But it's honest. Yeah, I said. It is. So I emailed them. The next week, I started working part-time with Silver Shield, teaching seniors how to read policy fine print, reviewing complaint letters, helping one woman write a statement to her credit union after they refused to refund a scam charge. It wasn't power. It wasn't prestige. But it felt right. Then one afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Official looking. Inside, confirmation that, under the whistleblower protection provision of the Dodd-Frank Act, I qualified for federal immunity and a modest reward from the fines levied on Breyer and Levin's frozen assets. Not millions, but enough. Enough to pay off my credit cards, set aside savings, and adopt a second dog. Still considering that part. Juno has opinions. It's been 6 months. The air's getting crisp again, that early fall bite that sneaks into your jacket collar when you're not paying attention. I've started walking Juno in the park again every morning. She trots ahead, nose to the ground, tail high, as if she personally owns every square inch of grass. She probably does. This morning, Daniel met us near the duck pond, holding a to-go coffee in one hand and a leash in the other. Attached to that leash was Scout, a scruffy little mutt we picked up from the shelter 2 weeks ago. Juno didn't love the idea at first, but she's warmed up to him. Mostly. She still steals his treats. As we walked, Daniel asked me, do you ever miss it? The old job, the salary, the stability. I thought about that. About the meetings and commissions and the fake smiles. About Greg's hand clapping my shoulder. About Mrs. Kellerman in her lavender coat. About the USB drive I carried around like a talisman. No, I said. Not even a little. He nodded. Silver Shield isn't glamorous, but it's real. Last week I helped a couple in their 70s recover $8,000 from a fraudulent reverse mortgage scheme. They sent me a thank you card that smelled like cinnamon and glue handmade. I pinned it to the wall above my desk. It reminds me why I do this. Justice doesn't always come with headlines. Sometimes it's just a quiet relief in someone's voice. A hug at the end of a long phone call. The sound of a senior citizen saying, I didn't know who to call, but someone told me you'd listen. That's enough. Daniel reached down and gave Scout a treat. Juno pouted until he gave her one too. Do you ever think about us? I asked, surprising myself. He didn't flinch. Yeah, he said softly. But we were better partners than spouses. True, I smiled. You were the best undercover dog walker I ever had. He laughed. And you were the only ex I ever trusted with my passwords. We stopped at the edge of the park, the city just beginning to hum awake around us. He looked over at me. I'm proud of you, Sam, he said. What you did, not a lot of people would have had the guts. I nodded. Thanks for not letting me do it alone. Because here's the thing, some wars aren't won with weapons. Just with the truth and the support of the one who still walks your dog when you're too tired to move. As we headed home, 2 dogs trotting ahead, I realized something simple but powerful. You can lose everything, your job, your marriage, your sense of safety, and still come out whole. Maybe even better. Because dignity, once you reclaim it, it's something no one can ever scam away.